Welcome to NJSBA's new video program, Education Matters. I'm Ray Penny, the host for today's show. Today's episode will be dealing with CSA evaluation. The show is designed to bring to school board members and to school administrators the everyday issues that you deal with at the board table. They don't always make great headlines, but it is important in the duties of the school board member and the school administrator. Today our guest is Joanne Borin, a field service rep for New Jersey School Board Association. Joanne, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Joanne's been a field service rep for
almost 23 years.
Almost 23 years with New Jersey School Board Association. And I know Joanne finds that evaluating superintendent and setting goals is one of the most important things a school board member can do. Joanne, why is evaluating superintendent so important?
Well, this is your opportunity to hold the superintendent accountable. And by accountable, I mean that you can give the superintendent praise for a job well done. And it's also time when you can say to the superintendent, these are the actions or the activities that need to be improved. That your performance is not living up to our expectations in some areas. So you can give the superintendent the positives, the strengths, and any areas that need attention. And you can communicate your desires to improve the district.
What is the process for evaluating the superintendent?
We have an online evaluation that's available for our board members. We have a Word document that's available for our charter school members. For the online evaluation, the superintendent completes his or her evaluation, his or her assessment of the progress toward district goals. They put in their information, and then by the next morning, every board member gets an email that says they can now go on the online evaluation and put in their information. Their information deals with their assessment of the progress of the superintendent, and then their assessment of the superintendent's leadership skills. That's based on standards that are set for the superintendent.
We have many charter schools that are members of the association. Is the process the same for charter school trustees?
This process is the same. We don't call them superintendents. Sometimes we call them directors or lead teachers, lead people, but it is exactly the same process in terms of the instrument that we have available, though we have one that is customized for charter schools.
Now, I know that evaluating the chief school administrator is tied to district goals.
Yes.
How does that work? And when do you start that process?
I love doing district goals. And this is the right time. We're coming to spring. This is when boards should start meeting. May, June, July. Field service is available all summer long, all spring long, to help you facilitate the process of setting goals. This is the opportunity for board members to say what they want to see achieved in their district, what their priorities are. And we expect, of course, student achievement to be the priority, but what specifically board members want to see achieved, that's part of the dialogue that goes around the development of district goals. So the district goals are developed spring, summer, and then there is communication throughout the year with the superintendent, with the Board of Education on progress toward those district goals. My preference is that monthly the superintendent gives a report on progress toward district goals to the board at the regular board meeting. Then the board members know what's going on. And all year long they're focused on progress that's being made on those goals. Come February, March, April, when they evaluate the superintendent, then they're evaluating the superintendent on something in which they've discussed and focused on all year long.
So it is a year-long process if it's done correctly.
Absolutely, an all year long process.
Now, at the time period that we are, we're in March right
Yes.
now, you're compiling the documents. It's a is it a majority document?
Yes.
Could you explain what that is?
Yes, and that's a very good question, Ray. The only time that you will ever hear the phrase majority document is for a superintendent evaluation. So the board members do that evaluation, and then they sit down in closed session. By the way, this is done in closed session. At that time, they look at the input from the board members and they see where the majority opinion is. If the majority of the board believes that this is an area of strength, then it's an area of strength. There is no minority opinion. So it's the majority opinion that rules, if you will. It's just really like passing a motion, but because it's done in closed session, there can be no motion. So it's what the will of the majority is, that is what the decision on the superintendent's achievements are.
If I'm one of the board members, was a minority opinion,
Yes.
is it expressed to the superintendent at all, or is it just quietly?
Another excellent question. It is not in the narrative that is written about the superintendent. Now, I said that the board members can do an instrument that we have available either online or as a Word document, but the actual evaluation is a narrative. That narrative reflects the majority opinion of the board. It does not reflect the minority opinion, but there is a summary conference that must be held before April 30th. The code says the majority of the board must sit with the superintendent and discuss the superintendent's evaluation. When they have that discussion, the minority opinion can then certainly be put on the table and discussed with the superintendent, and should be, because the superintendent should certainly hear all points of view.
You brought up earlier that the summary conference is a closed session.
Yes.
What about the rest of the process? When you set goals, is that open? And when you do all the updates?
Great. The goal setting is open. It's a process that's open to the public. According to CSA, it has to take place in the school district. So that's goal setting that happens in the spring and summer. When the board meets to discuss the superintendent's performance, that can be held in closed session. Of course, if you're holding it in closed session, you have to write to your superintendent and get his permission or her permission to have it in closed session. That's legally acceptable to exclude the superintendent from a discussion of the superintendent's performance. The summary conference is again a closed session meeting in which you once again need to write the superintendent to have it in closed session.
When you talk about the summary document and narrative,
Yes.
to get to that, you use the ranking, the NJSBA's
Instrument.
instrument.
Yes, we take that, the boards take that data, and then usually the president or someone that the president delegates to write the narrative. But the board discusses it first and says, oh, here are the things that we believe are the strengths of the superintendent, and here are the areas that need attention. And then somebody writes that narrative, if it's the board, let's say it's the board president. The board president then shares it with the rest of the board, and they are all in agreement before it's presented to the superintendent.
I have quite a few other questions
Go ahead.
on the reaction from the superintendent and that, but I think I would like to show our viewers how to get to that narrative by using the NJSBA instrument.
Great.
So we'll take a break to do that.
Okay, so here is the online superintendent evaluation. If you follow the directions you get in your email, it will take you to online superintendent evaluation resources, and you want to click on Begin the Superintendent Evaluation Process Now. First, it will give you a screen that asks for your username, and you put in the name that the email that you use to get mail from New Jersey school boards, and then you put in your password. If you don't know your password, you can click on Get My Password, and you will be able to get your password. So then the screen it takes you to gives you the directions for completing the evaluation, and it has directions for board members, and then proceed to the evaluation. And if you click on Proceed to the Evaluation, You will get a screen that gives you the evaluation. Now, I've already done my evaluation, so that's why you're seeing you've completed the evaluation, and you'll get that at the end.
All right, I'm the superintendent. I don't agree with the evaluation. I think there were some mistakes in it. What's my recourse?
Well, first of all, the many years that I have the pleasure of working with boards and superintendents, I have found that the vast majority of superintendents want to do a great job. Every superintendent wants to do a great job. And when they see their evaluation, if it's not perfect, commendable in every area, they are usually a little disappointed because they're really trying very hard. They can, at the summary conference, can talk to the board and give them their opinion about why they don't necessarily agree with the evaluation. The other thing that they have the legal right to do is addend any information they need to or want to the actual evaluation, and they have 10 business days to do that after the evaluation is done, usually until May 10th.
Now, the superintendent has to sign off on the evaluation.
Yes.
He or she is not signing off that they agree with the evaluation,
Correct.
right?
They are signing that they have received the evaluation, not that they agree with it, just that they've received it.
Okay, we have a timetable. What's the timetable for when you have to have the evaluation in?
The evaluation must be completed by statutory requirements by April 30th. That means the board members have to put their input in, sit together, discuss the evaluation, develop a narrative, agree to the narrative, present it to the superintendent, and have that summary conference. By the way, my suggestion would be that the board members present that summary report to the superintendent, that narrative, before the summary conference. You don't want to surprise them. You need to give them some time to absorb it, read through, and then be prepared to talk to the board about that.
This year, we had a lot of school boards vote to move their school board
Yes.
elections in November. Is the time frame the same for those districts that now have elections in November?
Yes, it is. The time frame has not changed. April 30th is still the statutory deadline for doing the superintendent's evaluation.
If I'm a school district and we have our school board elections in November, new board members are not coming on until January, and then within 6 weeks, they're in the evaluation process
Yes.
for the superintendent. What are some recommendations? This is new ground for a lot of us, but
Yes.
what are some recommendations to bring the new board members involved?
You know, it's really a dilemma. I believe it's a dilemma for board members. Legally, they have the right, once they're sworn that oath of office, they have the right to participate in the evaluation of the superintendent. But that evaluation of the superintendent is supposed to cover a whole year's worth of work by the superintendent. So, what do they know about the superintendent, and how can they evaluate someone for only they've only been there for 6 weeks? So, my recommendation is, if a board member feels uncomfortable with the process, that they should just abstain. On the other hand, if they want to do it, they should do it. And if, in that case, our evaluation allows for don't know. If they put a don't know in the area of a leadership skill, for example, it does not count in the minority or the majority. It doesn't count. So we are not averaging, so the don't knows would not be included. So I think each board member has to make the decision whether they want to participate the year that they get elected or not.
If they are participating, I assume it's okay for the board to share with them not any personnel issues, but the goals and the progress towards goals that has been happening at public meetings.
Absolutely, that's essential information that they have. That's why it's really better, of course, for board members who have been on the board for the whole year, who have been part of the development of the goals and have watched the goals develop throughout the year, to understand and better evaluate the superintendent. But if they can't, because of the November election, then they have to decide what's best for them, but having good information for evaluating the superintendent and for doing anything else on the board, good information is essential.
When anyone gets evaluated on their job, it's always a tension-filled sometimes,
Yes.
especially when it doesn't really go as good as you had hoped. But in the end, is it something that can really build a relationship and build a district if you do it right and keep the communication going?
Absolutely. I think that it's essential part of building the relationship. No person, as good as a superintendent might be, no one is perfect. And with the change of boards, with the change of community, with the information and the mandates coming from Trenton, things change. So if the board and superintendent develop that team, that ability to say, this is working well and this needs adjustment, I think the relationship will flower and improve, and the performance of the superintendent will be much improved by having that input.
On that note, I think it brings us to the end of this episode of Education Matters. I'd like to thank Joanne for joining me.
Thank you.
Joanne, it was a pleasure as always. If you have any questions on the topics or for either Joanne or myself, please contact me via email, rpinney@njsba.org, and thank you for viewing.